Hello, everyone. Welcome back to 78 Reflections. My name is Patty Elaine, and I'm so glad you're here. Today, I am doing a VR to Nova Mundi. I'm a little bit late to the show, but late to the party, but I wanted to participate. And it was the VR for readers, mass market must-haves. And so I've been watching a lot of videos, and they've been so great. And I thought, why not? Let's join the party. So I'm going to jump right in. There's 11 prompts. And the first deck is best for practical, mundane, and everyday readings. And for that, I am choosing the Good Fortune Tarot. So this tarot I've been working with in March, along with my exploration of the Marseille. I'll show you what it looks like. I don't have the box because it's too big. But it's a Llewellyn deck. Barbara Moore wrote the guidebook, and it's illustrated by none other than the wonderful Jessica Rue. And so I love this deck. I actually find this deck has a sense of humor as well. So one of the things I like to do with it is using it for the practical, mundane, everyday is when I'm navigating between different parts of my day, I will do an energy obstacle advice reading. So for example, as I'm moving into recording this video, what is the energy for me? And so the star. Well, I do think that that is interesting because I love the YouTube community, and I created my YouTube channel so I could be part of the community. And I was hoping that what I have to share might be interesting or useful for people. But it can be a bit of a grind, making time for it, getting ideas for videos. And, my last two videos, well, the last one had terrible lighting. The one before that had terrible sound. And so I'm feeling sort of discouraged. So, the star, though, is calm after the storm. It comes right after the Tower card. So the next question I want to ask is, what is the obstacle for me? Oh my gosh, this Four of Cups is too funny. I got this card the other day when I was asking energy obstacle advice, and I got this as the advice card, and the guidebook is so funny. I'm just going to tell you what the guidebook says about it because it was just such practical advice. Basically told me to get dressed, and that's exactly what I needed to do in that moment. So the Four of Cups. This book is arranged a little differently because all the fours are together rather than having the suits together. But I do like this guidebook. Just going to show you in case you want to take a screenshot and read it for yourself. The four is the petri dish of the cups. Our emotions are securely contained and laid out for our viewing pleasure. Assessing our emotional state is healthy and beyond fruitful pursuit until it's not. Once a certain line is crossed, assessment turns into obsession, causing emotions to remain in the body too long, that which once nourished and guided becomes poison and not to be trusted. And so it goes on to say here, quiet the mind, release emotions with simple acts. Take a shower, clean your room, put your ducks in order. And so I think as an obstacle, I think the guidebook just said that really well, that, assessing our emotional state is healthy and often fruitful until it's not. And so sometimes you just have to do the things. You just have to do the things and not get weighed down in emotions. Should I bring this in a little closer? There we go. So let's get an advice. If that's the obstacle. So the obstacle is, being stuck in the feels. The energy is a sense of renewing and hope. The obstacle is getting stuck in my feels. What's the advice for me? Well, could it be any more perfect? The Three of Cups. I love the Three of Cups. It is my heart's desire to have community, connection, joyfulness in my relationship. And that is really what I want here in YouTube. And I have found so many people to be encouraging, and my channel is new and I really haven't gotten a lot of traction with it. But I'm keeping on. I'm trying to be consistent. And I'm also trying to remember my why. And my why was connection and joy. And so I appreciate that for advice. So you can see how this deck is really helpful for practical readings. Also, I want to show you my Peggy bag. Peggy had a sale in her bag, so Peggy is Lisa Pepez's partner. And if you don't know, she makes beautiful bags and sells them on Etsy. And she's also Canadian, which I love, to support Canadian businesses. So anyway, she had a sale, even though it's supposed to be on a low buy. Listen, that's another conversation. I just watched Marlena Teresa's Bye Bye Low Buy. Let's not go there. So the next prompt is best for relationships. So I don't have a love relationship in my life right now, and I don't do any relationship reading in that sense. But I do a lot of friendship spreads, and layly I have been working with the Fifth Spirit Tarot for friendship spreads. So what I like to do for these spreads, if I want to do a check-in, really, really like this deck. It is pippish. Some people may not love that. And the cardstock is not great. You can see it's bowed, and it's quite it's a lot I have small hands. It's a lot for me to wrap my hands around, but, especially after working with the Marseille, I feel like I'm learning pips. So what I like to do is just kind of center into a friendship that's on my mind right now. And I'm going to pull 4 cards. And the first card is, what is my vibe in this relationship right now? What is my vibe in this friendship? And I really want to, I'm finding my mind drifting to various friendships right now. So I just want to zero in on one. What is my vibe in this friendship right now? Queen of Cups. I love this Queen of Cups. Look at her with her crystals and all of her pendulums hanging above her head. And so the Queen of Cups for me is a nurturing energy. I think of the Queen as being the expansive energy of that suit. So with Cups, which is about our emotions, and I think that she has a lot of capacity to hold emotion. And I do feel as though in this friendship right now that I am in that expansive space. So what is their vibe? Temperance. Interesting. So temperance for me is about alchemy. And, there's one foot on the ground and one in the water. And so, I think when someone's vibe is temperance, I feel like they might not be feeling particularly stable. And at the same time, they might be feeling like they're in a bit of a middle path. And I think that's because our friendship is changing a lot. And a lot of it is just due to our life circumstances, divergence of paths. So I'm just wondering, what is our vibe together? So if I'm the Queen of Cups and they're Temperance, that actually feels pretty positive to me. So I'm curious, on the middle card is going to be us together. Not what I expected. This is a really fun image for the Ten of Wands because, I think of the Ten of Wands, I often think of a burden. And I think this 10 kind of leads us to this fire that's burning hot. And, often when I get the Ten of Wands, I often think, am I carrying more than I need to? And this isn't the advice card. This is what is the energy between us? And so I'm just going to read from the guidebook here. In the Ten of Wands, you've successfully acquired all of the wands, all of the creative projects and career advancements and leadership roles, all of the accolades and attention and respect, and it all adds up to a heavy load. You might not be able to carry it all. So it's a warning about burnout, which is interesting, given the Queen of Cups and the Temperance. So I'm going to ask for advice now. What is the best advice for navigating forward, given this somewhat confusing middle card of the Ten of Wands? The Emperor. I love this Emperor card. When I think of the Emperor, I think of the good principal, like the school principal. And the Emperor is the one who makes sure that all of the kids have recess, that they're learning, that they have teachers that support them. And so I often think of the Emperor. Of course, it's a 4, so it's about stability. And I also always think of pace as being an important factor with the Emperor. And so I'm going to just take a peek at the guidebook. But how I'm reading that as advice is really about maybe having more consistent check-ins with the friend and making plans and rebuilding a stable foundation. To farmers, environmental scientists, indigenous elders, green city planters, if the Empress is the wild, fruiting vine of nature creation, then the Emperor can be the sturdy trellis that lends its structure so the vine may climb closer to the sun. This is not an Emperor of oppression or control, but of accountability and benevolent stewardship of the land and its people. And I love that concept of benevolent stewardship over a friendship as well. Interesting. So what I like to do when I do a friendship spread is I will usually keep the spread out and I will sort of touch in on it, because especially when the middle card is as confusing as that one is for me, I think that it can be helpful to give it some time to marinate. So the next prompt, the best for shadow work, and I have been working with, well, this is a deck that I worked with in, I guess, February. It feels so long ago now. I work with this pairing, and I just think that it is really good for shadow work. So with the spring equinox, the card that came up for me when I asked what is at the heart of the spring equinox for me, it was shadow self. And that came from the vintage oracle card I was working with, the vintage oracle deck I was working with. And so I decided as part of my spring equinox retreat to do a spread. And so I just pulled one card from the Lantern Oracle. And what is the shadow aspect of self that is ready to have a light shining on it? And it's interesting to hear people talk about shadow work. And I know there's a gazillion different ways of doing it. But I like to start with this deck to kind of set the tone. And it's interesting that this card came up. This card did come up during my equinox spread. And it's this sense of enoughness. And the shadow part of me is not feeling worthy. And the message in the Lantern Oracle, I do find those cards a bit difficult to deal with because they're so big, but I do love them. And so I'm going to keep working with them. But I just ask the Crow Tarot, tell me more about the shadow set self of not feeling worthy. What do I need to know about that? Oh, the cards are everywhere. I love the Strength card. And, you know, the infinity symbol there is just this sense of flow and acceptance. And often with the Strength card, I think of this acceptance of all parts of self. because the strength card is fortitude, yes. But it's also an integration of maybe the parts of us that we think are less worthy than other parts. I'm just going to take a quick look at the guidebook and see if there's something I want to layer on that understanding. It's not through brute force that this crow has achieved the challenging goal of taming the wild beast. It's because she has mastered her ability to connect with a higher frequency, channeling trust and respect. The positive energy she radiates enables the crow to balance confidently on the lion's nose, not in conquest, but out of mutual respect. The crow has learned how to remove her ego, quieting the hum of fear, allowing her to hear the inner guidance of her higher consciousness. It is from this place that she wields true power of strength. Strength cards suggest that you will have an experience that requires you to summon the power that comes from only from exercising inner peace and freeing yourself from the influences of ego and fear. And that does layer on something else for me, and that is that underneath this sense of not feeling worthy is fear. Fear of acceptance, fear of belonging, fear of rejection. And that can be very, very motivating. So even just, working with these two cards in shadow work, I have been finding, I normally don't like single card draws, even though you're going to say, Patty, you didn't draw a single card, you drew two cards, but one from each deck. Sometimes I like to have more cards for more information, but I have found with shadow work that less is more. And just really thinking on that and, potentially layering on more cards later, but allowing myself to sit with that can be really, really valuable. So the best deck for shadow work is the Crow Tarot, but I do like to use the Lantern Oracle along with that. Now, the next prompt is for career and life path. And what I've been really enjoying for that is the Morgan Greer. And I know that this is a well-known deck, an oldie but a goodie. But I do find it to be really helpful for career path. I will even use this deck in the same way that I was doing the energy obstacle advice in my everyday, but I'll use this for my work. So yes, for career and life path, but also just for navigating the mundane. And so I was doing this last week because I watched this video from Don Michelle about transitions, and I really liked it. And so what I was doing was I was doing a card to represent my current energy. So task switching is very hard for me. And so similar to what I did for the energy obstacle advice, but I'm looking at the energy on both sides, almost like a wobble reading. So, what is the energy for me in doing, let's say I'm doing a bunch of admin work. So what is the energy for me around this admin work that I'm currently doing? Yeah. Absolutely. The image says it all for me. I hate doing admin work. And it does feel like it ties ropes around my wrist and keeps me from doing work that matters more. And so then what is the energy for me in creating new courses? So I'm moving into part of my day where I'm doing course creation. What is the energy for me for the course creation work? 4 Pentacles. And so there's the scarcity mindset of resources when it comes to the 4 of Pentacles. And, that's the work I really love doing, but I never feel like I have enough time because I'm always got my wrist tied together by too much admin work and too much busy work. And so what Dawn Michelle did was for the card in the middle, she did a oracle, and I have been using this one. I actually tested out a few different oracles, and this one was giving the best messages. And so and I will link her video because it's so good, and she gives a lot of examples. But so what is the bridge between these two? The bound mental angst of the admin work and a scarcity mindset regarding not having enough time and energy for the work that matters most. And the card that came up was health. I will honor the physical vessel that enshrines my soul. And here's the thing that is actually really helpful, because the way forward isn't to push harder. It is to take really good care of myself, my mind, soul, and body, so that I have capacity to do that work that matters most. And so it involves setting boundaries. It involves taking breaks. It involves nourishment, eating, because I can tend to get into flow of the day and not even like take time to go to the washroom or have a glass of water or eat something. And then what ends up happening is it becomes this terrible self-fulfilling prophecy of staying there because I'm not taking good care of myself. So I feel like I got off track on that question because I didn't do a career life path spread, but that is because I would do probably a Celtic cross or a modified Celtic cross for that, and that's too big today. So anyway, hopefully that illustrated my point that the Morgan Greer is great for career and life path, even the mundane parts of our career. Healing and emotional recovery. So I have modified the Nicolette Chakotay. Let me show you this bag. Oops. The Nicolette Chakotay Tarot. I've modified it. Also inspired by Don Michel. Wow, I'm all about Don Michel today, aren't I? So what she did was she modified the cards and she also renamed them. I don't know if I followed her renaming exactly, but you can see I chose my own. And that's because this is an art deck. So it's basically art that was sort of forced to fit into the tarot rather than created for the tarot. And so there were some disconnects for her and for me. And so this is my inner child deck. And what I like to do for healing and emotional recovery is I like to tap into my inner child. My inner child is someone I ignored for a lot of years because she was too needy and I needed to be a grown up and I had serious things to do. And that actually didn't serve me really well. And so when I'm feeling like I need healing or emotional recovery, I like to ask my inner child what she wants me to know. And so I will just pull one card and say to my inner child, what would you like me to know? What would you like me to pay attention to right now? The Magician. I find this deck to be really impactful because it really brings an emotional response for me. And I don't necessarily interpret it, you know, what is the textbook definition of magician, but more so, what am I seeing in this card? And so what I'm seeing is that, you know, she's standing there, she's holding this mask, and you can see she has ears. And I think what's happening with her is she's becoming who she thinks people expect her to be. And so she's grown a tail, she's grown ears. The other thing that's really impactful for me in this imagery is this cage. This bird trapped in this cage, and this feeling of maybe not being able to access her magic, not feeling like she can be who she really is, that she needs to conform. And that does align with the card that I got for the shadow spread of that enough. And so then I will pull a card from the Alice in Wonderland Oracle, also an inner child deck, and I'll just say, what is a message of encouragement for my inner child? And the card that came up is uncertainty. One of the things I like about this cards is it does have a message on the back. When Alice meets the caterpillar, her indecision, sadness, and uncertainty are not met with sympathy. Instead, the caterpillar gives her the chance to change herself. Empowerment is a journey. It is only through the willingness to learn and experiment that you will know what must be done in order to be who you wish to be. When I first saw the word uncertainty, I wasn't sure how that was going to connect with this card, but it really, really does. And I do think that that is an encouraging message for my inner child about, accepting that it is not an easy button. You can't just press a button and be who you wish to be. You have to experiment and learn and experiment. You have to experiment and learn as you go on your journey towards empowerment. So those are the decks that I like to work with for healing and emotional recovery. Now for decision making, I found a spread recently in the Millennial Tarot, and I'm not going to use the Millennial Tarot for this, but I am going to use this spread because I really liked it. So there's 4 cards. The first one is insight to your first option or path. The second is understanding your second option or alternative path. The third one is pinpointing where your indecision lies. And the last one is clarity on the direction your choices are leading you. And the deck that I like to use for decision making is the Wild Unknown. And my daughter has this as a travel deck. And when we were in Costa Rica recently, I was working with hers a little bit, and I was reminded how much I like it. So I'm just going to think about a decision that I would like to make, and it could be something simple or something more complex. Let's go with something simple. So for me, I have lots going on in my life right now, and I have today, and then things are going to really speed up. So what I'm wondering is, should I take it as a day of rest, or should I get busy and get things done? So what is the energy for me around getting things done? The Fool. So of course I don't want to do things. Look at this chick. This chick isn't doing work. So let me just look back at this spread for a second. I want to make sure. So that was insights into my first option. So let's, my second option, so this was getting work done. Maybe just like resting and taking care of myself. What are the insights for that? The Magician. Well, I often think about the Magician as like doing the things, experimenting though. Let's continue on and see if we get more clarity. So what is behind my indecision? Let's try to pinpoint what my indecision is all about. Okay, so let's pull the last card. So the 10 of Cups. The last card is clarity on the direction my choices are leading me. So what direction is this leading me? Got this idea of getting stuff done today, or taking care of myself. And the Justice card. To begin with, loving the color in that card. So I definitely think the energy around getting stuff done today, the Fool. Not really feeling like getting stuff done. I want to be more spontaneous. Don't necessarily want a lot of structure in my Sunday today. And then the energy around just kind of relaxing and taking care of myself. You know, I think the Magician is potential, and you can see he's looking over into this direction. And, you know, he's saying, yeah, we could just chill, but look, I got all this cool stuff here. And then the 10 of Cups being, you know, why am I having this indecision? And there's a lot of energy in this 10 of Cups card, a lot of color. And I feel like there's this potential. And I think that's what's creating this sense of indecision. And so where is it leading me to? It's leading me to justice, which is interesting. You've got the white and the black cat, and you've got their tails wrapped around that ball together, and I want to see what the guidebook says about this. I feel like this is an interesting justice card. It's decisions. Wow, shocking. With tails intertwined, the two cats look directly at you, waiting for you to choose between them, which is right and which is wrong. The justice card implies a weight or heaviness surrounding the choice you have to make. Now is not the time to shun the concept of divine balance. All of your choices affect your life, and sometimes the lives of those around you, both now and in the future. So I think that's suggesting there's a middle path, that it's not either or. And so maybe there's a way of navigating this day without giving a lot of structure or heavy to-dos, but accomplishing some things, also taking care of myself, maybe having some magic and joyfulness in my day. There you go. The decision is both. I don't love that kind of decision making, but hey, the cards give us what we need. So moving now to daily guidance oracle. And if you've watched my video called, I think it's called At Present, I recorded it very recently, and it talked about what I've been working with. And one of the things I talked about is how pleasantly surprised I have been by working with the Marseille. And where's my Marseille deck? Hold, please. So this is the Marseille deck I was working with in March. Also, the Squid Cake Marseille, which is cute and fun. Maybe I should have pulled that to simplify this. But I love the Marseille. I think if you watch my video, I shared that I used an easy 3-step process that was outlined. I'll link the video here. Marlena Teresa had pointed me in that direction. And it's really focusing on structural observations. And so first, the function of the cards. Second, the interaction, directionality. And third, the story. And so what I like to do is just draw 3 cards and then read them to the best of my ability with pretty limited Marseille knowledge. But I will say over the month of March, I just felt like I really grew as a Marseille reader. So let's see what comes up for me here for today. I'll spare you all that shuffling. So I like to use jumpers, but sometimes it takes forever to get there. And so using this approach of function, interaction, and story, what's interesting here is we have this page of swords. And they're really about perception and mental awareness. What's interesting to me is this page is like kind of looking this way, looking away from this 9 of Swords, which I think is meaningful in this spread. And then we have, the 9 of Swords being this sense of compression. You can see the sword in the center is being compressed. There's not a lot of space around it. It's outnumbered. And so I really see that as being like this pressure point. And then the star, the star is the human response here. And the woman in the star card is kind of facing the 9. So she's not avoiding it, but she's also in the present moment. And so pouring these jugs and doing what she's doing. So how I would read this is we have this page energy, which is clarity with the sword, right? So noticing, listening, observing. And we have this pressure point here, which is a very real aspect of our day. But how we can navigate it through is with this resilience, surrender to the flow and being in the moment. So what I find for this really helpful is even throughout the day, I usually write like a keyword. So clarity, pressure point, and then the human response. And so as I'm going through my day, if I feel like, I'm feeling overwhelmed, it's Sunday, I've got to work tomorrow, then just first starting with noticing with the page and acknowledging this pressure point, but then grounding myself in the moment. You can see she's got 1 foot on the ground, 1 in the water, and trying to create this sense of equilibrium and surrender to where I'm at in my day. So that's how I like to use the Marseille for daily guidance. And I love doing this in the month of March. Prompt 8, beginners, practical plus a little extra. The deck I chose for that is the Everyday Witch. And the reason why I chose this deck is because I do think it is important to learn on a Waite-Smith deck. This is my opinion. But I also think that if someone can get a deck that is kind of fun and interesting, which I think this one is, it also has a really great guidebook, which is helpful. And so I think that the storytelling in the cards can be really helpful for a new person. And so, in this Five of Pentacles, it's easy to see how, these people are out in the cold. And even though this house is there offering warmth, will they be welcome? And so it really reinforces that sense of scarcity. And so even the more challenging cards, I think, can be quite easy to process. Maybe not that death card as much, but the guidebook is so helpful and interesting. So I think this card is good for beginners, and I think it is a little extra. I think it's fun. Look at this High Priestess. I think that instead of just having a High Priestess that's sitting between these two pillars, they still have the two pillars, but showing the tarot cards and the cat and the crystal ball in the center. I just think it really helps with the understanding. I do feel like when I got this deck that my understanding of the tarot really deepened. I like this Ten of Swords where she's, her broom is just out of reach, but not that far out of reach. She could probably get it. So this is a card that I recommend for beginners, and it's fun, great guidebook, but true enough to the Waite-Smith where I think you're still learning that if that's what the person wants to do. But I do think it's really individual. I used to think more so it should be a certain way, but I do think it's really individual. What are your goals? What is your intention? And also, it's not that serious. Like maybe just start somewhere. So that's the Everyday Witch. I'm sure a lot of people know that deck. It's been around for a while. It's a Llewellyn deck as well. Prompt 9, Intuitive Free Flow. And so I talked about how, the Hidden Realms Tarot really inspired me to do writing. And I just think some decks really tap into my intuition better than others. And I will say the Enchanted Firaxa also does that. I just find, maybe it's the storytelling in the card. Maybe it's my affinity with the Fae energy. But I do find them really easy to read intuitively. And so let's just try it. Let's see. Let's pull a few cards. See what comes up. Oh boy. Can we fit one more? Let's do 4. Well, let's see. I love this Four of Wands, because she is undergoing a metamorphosis. But what I really love about it is look how happy she is. And, they're helping her. They're there supporting her through this metamorphosis, which is a very different vibe from your typical Four of Wands. But I do really, really love it. And look at all of these other fairies. And so, I think about that very much contrasted with this Five of Earth feeling of being alone. And this is the polar opposite of that. Here, she's alone, and not only that, but look at all these creatures looming in the background. And so she's very much in a scarcity mindset there. And then we have the Empress. And this image of the Empress, we often see a pregnant woman. And here, this Empress, look at how lush this card is. And you've got the bunnies, she's got these beautiful wings and this great dress. And she's got her eyes closed. She is present and calm in this moment. And, thinking about nurturing her baby. Versus the contrast of this isolation and alienation and fear. And I'm not going to show that card very long because I feel like it could be triggering for some people with the spiders. But it's very real. It's very visceral. So I feel like I can tell stories about what's going on in these cards, and I can relate to how I'm feeling in my life. So I love the Firaxa for intuitive free flow. Parties. So the Millennial Tarot. I bought this deck. I was influenced by Danny Mystic to buy it. If I'm being honest, I don't think it gives the best readings. Me and my daughter were actually both talking about that and how we didn't feel like we got really good readings for it. But I think it could be good for some fun. And what I was looking in this, I do think there's some good spreads in here as well. There's this one spread called All Spread Out. Give me the spark notes. It's like an appetizer sampler of your life. And so they give 5 examples, but I think you could kind of decide what you wanted to do. But I thought it would be a fun thing to do for reading at a party. These cards are kind of big. Cardstock isn't great. A little bit hard to shuffle, but I do think people would have fun with them. And the guidebook is kind of fun. So let's just pull a couple that you could do. You know, if you're sitting around with some friends or you're at a party and people want to do some readings, let's just pick a couple of these categories. So let's do, it has work happenings, friends and family tea, and a personal development check-in. Let's just do those 3. So let's start with work happenings, check in on work haps. And I'm not going to do the flyer thing because, you know, at some point that's just too much. Work haps, the Tinderists. And we're going to do friends and family tea. Ooh. And the personal development check-in. Okay. And so, you know, in the group, you could pull up the guidebook because it gives the TLDR. It's just kind of fun. So the first one was work haps, the Tinderists. So let's see what the guidebook has to say about that one. It's color coded as well, which is kind of fun. The TLDR is about gaining partners along the way. And so the sitch is that you might have 2 lovers sitting in a tree sexting. It's a match. So, you know, maybe you have a love interest at work, or maybe there's some scandals going on at work. You know, I think that I wouldn't usually read the lover's card that way, but I think this Tinderist, I think there's some stuff going on at work. What is the T with family and friends? The visionary, the magician. Envisioning the future is the TLDR. With headphones on, you're wired in, like wearing VR glasses. You see the world that others cannot. You're envisioning the future. You're shaping it through inventing and pitching a disruptive new app or summoning a rideshare with the tap of a finger. You're the architect of a new reality that others, if lucky, will one day marvel at and live in. So the real talk is, although it's exhilarating to imagine these digital utopias and design future potentials, don't forget to be grounded in the present. And so I think what may be happening here is that this person might be really just kind of focused on their own life and maybe forgetting about the value of spending time with friends and family. It goes on to say, don't blindly pursue your dreams. Use them as a guidepost. And so I think that sometimes when we're really focused on our future, we might not spend the time with friends and family that we need. And then the last one was our personal development. We got 4 of Feels, binge watching. So I think we can probably guess what this says, but let's look at it for fun. So you've binge watched 8 consecutive seasons of reality TV, and your nightly ritual consists of tiresome doom scrolling. And so we've all been in this position with our personal development where there's all kinds of things that we would like to do and we know would benefit us, but instead we are doom scrolling because maybe we don't have a lot of energy. So the real talk is endless binging offers superficial distraction that masks deeper restlessness. Boredom is often veiled irritation and dissatisfaction with the way things are. The glamour of highlight reels contrasts sharply with the seeming dullness of reality. Slow practices like mindfulness, journaling, and spending time in nature can help you transform the monotony of the mundane routines, which you'll inevitably experience into infinite wonder, mystery, and awe. That's kind of fun. So that is for parties. Last but not least, a hug deck. So what would I recommend for someone scared of the tarot? And it's interesting because I'm actually doing a reading for someone very soon. I don't do a lot of readings for other people, but I am going to be doing one. And she, I don't know what her comfort level is with the tarot, but I decided that I'm going to use Alice. And the reason why I like this deck is because it is similar to the Everyday Witch. It is a storytelling. And if someone knows and likes Alice in Wonderland, I think that they will really enjoy this. And I also think that with some of the more challenging cards, the story can help tell the tale of it. And so, like, there's the Three of Swords. I mean, it's a cake. I don't love all of the cards in this deck. Some of the court cards aren't my favorite, but I do like it overall. And I think that it's a good deck for a bit of a hug, maybe a laugh, and not taking it so seriously. So my deck for number 11, people scared of the tarot hug deck, Alice the Wonderland Tarot. I think it's the Wonderland. I always get it mixed up. But this is the Llewellyn Alice in Wonderland Tarot. So that was fun. That was probably really long. And my video was playing tricks on me. So it turned off a couple of times. So I'm going to have to piece it together. But hopefully I do a good job of that. And I want to thank you. If you're here to the end, please drop an emoji. Drop an emoji for me. And if you're going to do this VR, I'd love if you would tag me so I can watch your video. I've watched a lot of them, but I want to watch more. I found this to be a really nice, light tag. Thank you, Nova Mundi, for inspiring us all to do this during difficult times. So please like this video if you do. Subscribe if you want to hear more from me. And may our decks bring us truth bombs when we need it and gentleness when we don't. See you in the next one.